everyone, this is Yana Smakula for SimonsSaysStamp.com, and thanks for joining me today. Welcome to another episode from my bi-monthly Yippee For Yana video series. In today's episode, I wanted to go back to pencil coloring on black cardstock, but offer a simpler, easier to color idea. So today I'm using a fun background stamp from Hero Arts. This is Christmas Lights Bold Prints stamp, and it's a 6x6 cling stamp. I have a sheet of black cardstock. This is cardstock from Simon. It is smooth, but it still has a little bit of tooth to it. And it's actually crucial to make sure your paper has some tooth, as this is what will affect your coloring with colored pencils. Basically, you need to make sure that your paper has some tooth to it to be able to color well with colored pencils. I've prepped my paper with my anti-static powder tool. I usually like to use my other tool as it covers a larger area faster, but I took it to a crafty retreat and I haven't yet unpacked my bags, even though it's been more than 3 weeks now. But I had a good reason. My mom was visiting me from Ukraine, so I have been very busy, and this is my excuse for not unpacking the bags. I will unpack them soon. I'm using Simon's embossing ink to ink up this stamp, and I'm going to stamp it twice just in case onto this cardstock. I'm using my Misty stamp positioner to make sure I get a perfect impression and to make sure I have that ability to double stamp my image. I love to use Simon's antique gold embossing powder on black, so this is the color of powder I'm using today. I think I was planning to use white at first, as I was going with blue and white colors for this card, but I actually forgot, and also because using antique gold embossing powder is like a habit for me. I don't know, I subconsciously reach for it every time. I used a dry paintbrush to clean up some stray embossing powder particles and heat emboss this background with my heat tool. You have to remember, this card design will not look like much at first, as it's rather simple, but it will have a cool wow factor once we get to the very end. Once my heat embossing was done, I used a regular pencil eraser to get rid of the anti-static powder on my paper, and I just went over the entire panel with my eraser. I picked Faber-Castell polychromos pencils for my coloring today. You can also use Prismacolor pencils, but like I mentioned many times in my previous videos, I happen to prefer polychromos better. I think they're higher quality, and I don't know, I can't explain it. I just like these pencils much better than Prismacolors. I still use Prismacolors, especially since I have a huge 150 color pack of them, but my crafty heart prefers the polychromos. I picked just 4 pencils, 2 blue, a lighter and a darker, and 2 white pencils. Well, actually, a white and a very light gray. I did trim my panel to 4 by 5¼ inches before I started coloring, as I didn't want to color any unnecessary space. This kind of coloring, well, just like any other kind of coloring, really does take quite a bit of time. I made sure to sharpen my pencils. I know this might sound like a silly advice. We all know we need to sharpen pencils, but I often forget to do so, or I avoid sharpening them for as long as I can so that I don't waste any of my pencil. But sharpening the pencils really does help, especially when coloring tiny spaces like these Christmas lights. So if you watched some of my previous videos where I shared pencil coloring on black cardstock and felt intimidated, this is a much simpler version. The same approach, the same look, but a simpler version of a colored background. So I encourage you to give this idea a try. If you don't have this particular background stamp, look through your stash. Maybe you have a similar stamp or, just a string of lights that you can heat emboss multiple times and go ahead and color. It's fun and it's relaxing. I come home from work at 5 o'clock, I have dinner, and I look forward to coloring a background. It lets my mind rest, and I enjoy the process tremendously. I decided to color my lights blue and white. You can have additional colors, or you can color these in just one color, whatever you like best. Maybe you want these to be traditionally red and green, or vintage pink and teal. Do what makes your heart happy. I tried coloring every other light blue and then colored what was left white. I have found that for this particular card, I liked laying light color first, and coming in with the dark color, and not vice versa. Now, I have a quick tip for you. If you make a mistake and accidentally color where you aren't supposed to, you can erase some of the pencil with a pencil eraser. I'm not sure if this will work on white cardstock, but this has worked for me many times on black and has been very helpful. My coloring process took me about 20 minutes, and I was really happy with how this background turned out. This card idea was actually inspired and prompted by a card I did earlier using the same stamp set. I was writing a blog post for my blog, and I thought about coloring these lights with pencils. And as soon as my post was done, I went and tested my idea out, and it worked. Now, to create a sentiment for this card, I used one of Simon's older sentiment stamp sets. This is Peace on Earth, and I heat embossed a long, skinny sentiment that reads, "Wishing you the happiest, merriest, brightest, most fun-filled Christmas ever." I really like this stamp set for non-standard messages like this one. It's not often that I use them, but I do like having a tall, skinny sentiment like this one in my stash. I foam mounted my background and my sentiment onto a card base, and that's where the real magic started to happen. I knew I wanted to jazz up my background, so I used a Wink style glitter pen and added a generous amount of glitter onto each of my lights. As I was doing that, I actually noticed I didn't color every light. I missed a few, so I went back to my colored pencils and colored those. To spice this card up even more, I used glossy accents and coated each of my lights. This really made my card pop and pulled everything together. So this finishes this project. I hope you will give this idea a try, and I really do hope that you feel less intimidated now. As always, do tag us on social media so we can take a peek at your projects. I would love to see what you make. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet done so. If you are subscribed but you are not receiving the new video notifications, make sure to check the bell icon on the home screen of the YouTube channel to make sure you receive notifications about all the new videos. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you next time. Bye.